He survived the Japanese Imperial Navy. He survived the fire. He survived the drowning. But he died 40 years later, in a soft armchair in Ohio, sitting awake in the dark. The coroner wrote heart failure on the certificate. His wife told the neighbors it was old age. But if you looked at the autopsy of his mind, you would see the truth. He didn't die in that chair. He died on a Sunday morning 4 decades earlier. The history books say the attack on Pearl Harbor ended at 9:45 a.m. That is a lie. The false safety. 7 a.m., December 7th. If you could freeze this moment, you wouldn't see heroes. You would just see boredom. Jim wasn't thinking about history. He was thinking about his left boot. There was a pebble in it. He was thinking about the breakfast line. Specifically, he was wondering if the Navy had managed to burn the toast again. This is the part that documentaries skip. The terrifying smallness of the moment before the end of the world. Jim was 19. He was from Cleveland. He liked baseball and hated the humidity. He stood on the deck of the USS Arizona. He felt that specific kind of Sunday morning laziness where your biggest problem is how to kill the next 4 hours. He didn't know that in 5 minutes he would never feel bored again. He didn't know that the smell of coffee was about to be replaced by the smell of burning skin. And he didn't know about the oil. That was the thing that would follow him. Not the bombs, the oil. The interruption. The human brain rejects disaster. It refuses to believe it. When the first hum cut through the air, Jim didn't think war. He thought drill. He thought, those Army pilots are showing off again. He was annoyed. He actually felt irritated that the noise was ruining his quiet morning. Then the physics changed. The sound wasn't a sound anymore. It was a pressure. It vibrated in his teeth. He saw a plane dive. He saw something drop. It looked like a toy, a small black capsule falling in slow motion. The deck didn't just shake, it jumped. Jim was thrown into the railing. He bit his tongue. That was his first sensation of World War II. Not glory, just the salty copper taste of his own blood. He stood up. He looked at the ship next to him. He watched a 30,000-ton battleship lift out of the water like a plastic duck in a bathtub. He watched steel bend like wet cardboard. His brain broke. He looked at his hand. He was still holding the handle of his coffee cup. The cup was gone, just the handle. He stared at it. He couldn't understand where the cup went. Then the siren cut through the confusion, and the 19-year-old boy from Cleveland vanished. The thing in the water. War isn't about fighting. For the guys on the ground, war is about physics, heat, blast radius, gravity. Jim didn't grab a gun. The armory was underwater. He ran. He ran because the ship was dying underneath his feet. He reached the rail. He looked down, and there it was, the thing that would follow him for 40 years. The fuel tanks had ruptured. Thousands of gallons of bunker oil had poured into the harbor, and it was burning. The ocean was on fire. Jim had a choice: stay on the ship and burn, or jump into the fire and swim. He jumped. He hit the water, but it didn't feel like water. It felt like glue, thick, hot, sticky. It coated his eyes. It filled his nose. He surfaced, gasping for air, and sucked in a mouthful of smoke and oil. He started to swim. but the water was crowded. He felt things bumping against his legs, soft things, heavy things. He pushed them away. He didn't look down. He knew what they were. And then the moment happened. A boy next to him, maybe 18, covered in the black sludge. He reached for the rope ladder on the side of a barge. Jim reached for it too. Their hands slipped. The oil made everything slick. Jim found a grip. He pulled himself up. He looked down. The other boy was slipping. His eyes were white circles in a black face. He shouted something. Maybe mom, maybe help. Jim didn't reach down. He couldn't. If he let go, he would fall too. The boy slid back into the fire, and the oil closed over him like a black sheet. Jim climbed up. He survived, but he left his soul on that ladder. When the planes left, the silence was worse than the noise. Noise you can react to. Silence gives you time to think. Jim sat on a crate. He was shivering even though it was 80 degrees. He tried to wipe his face, but his hands were covered in the black oil. It wouldn't come off. He scrubbed and scrubbed. It was in his pores. A medic gave him a cigarette. Jim held it. He watched the smoke rise. It reminded him of the harbor. He threw it up. He looked at the water. It was still burning in places, small fires, like candles on a grave. He was alive. He had 2 arms, 2 legs. Technically, he was a lucky one, but he didn't feel lucky. He felt stained. The war comes home. Jim went home. He married Sarah. He got a job at the Ford plant. He was a good neighbor. He cut his grass on Saturdays. He never talked about the war. Why would he? The war was over. But the Shadow doesn't follow peace treaties. The enemy wasn't the Japanese anymore. The enemy was the night. Every time he closed his eyes, he wasn't in Cleveland. He was back in the oil. He could smell it. He could feel the slick, greasy rope in his hand. He would wake up sweating, gasping for air, checking his hands to see if they were black. Sarah would touch his shoulder. "Jim," she'd say, "you're safe. You're home." But he wasn't. He was watching that boy slip off the ladder every single night. He stopped swimming. He couldn't stand the feeling of water on his skin. He stopped eating soup. The texture reminded him of the harbor. He started keeping a light on in the hallway. He told Sarah it was for the kids, but the kids grew up and moved away, and the light stayed on. The ending. 40 years passed. The world moved on. Pearl Harbor became a movie. It became a t-shirt. People forgot the smell. But Jim didn't. He died in his chair at age 62. His heart gave out, or maybe it just got too heavy to carry. They buried him with military honors. They folded the flag. They played taps. They said he was finally at rest. But for 40 years, rest was the one thing the war never gave him. Some wars end. The Shadows don't. Shadow Frontlines.